She's married to Roger Rabbit? Yeah, what a lucky girl.
Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul, and we are
SP Film Viewers.
This ain't no cartoon, you know, but it is a podcast, and we're going to be talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit with a special guest joining us from Just Films and That podcast. It's Josh. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. It's very exciting and very lovely to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm very grateful for you joining us on this episode. When you said that this was something you wanted to cover, I was like very happy because it's one that we did initially do with somebody else on their podcast, but that never came to fruition. So it's a bit like,
Yeah.
kind of wanted to, obviously to have a means of talking about it, and it's something we quite enjoy.
Mhm.
So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful to have the opportunity to
Get stuck into Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
yeah, exactly. So before we get into things, Josh, just tell people who might not know what your podcast is about. Just give a little brief background.
Yeah, so I'm the co-host of a podcast called Just Films, and that comes out every Tuesday. And we talk about films that we think are underseen, films that we think are underrated, and then every now and then we have a guest on. We usually have about one guest a month. They come on and chat to us about a film that sometimes it's just a film that they love or a film that they think is underseen or underappreciated. And then we also cover, every now and then we'll cover a listener suggestion, so they'll suggest a film for us. And we also cover classic films as well, so films that perhaps that you know about, but you would never think, I'm actually going to sit down and take the time to watch that and see what is all the fuss about. So yeah, that's every Tuesday. It comes out wherever you get your podcasts. So yeah, that's pretty much the long and short of it. We've been going for a couple of years now, and we're just cracking on with it really, as anyone does in the podcasting world.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, I listened to a lot of your episodes, and they're really solid.
Oh,
So
thank you
the
very
banter
much.
and stuff between the two of you is really great as well. So
Thank you very much.
So we're going into this then. What is your relationship with the film? Is it something you've watched from a childhood, or have you kind of recently?
So it's an interesting one, this, because so I love this film. I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I think you gave me a couple of options, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I wanted to pick this because there's no way I could really talk about this on the podcast,
right?
Because I don't know if a listener's going to suggest it, because it doesn't fall into underseen or underrated.
Sure.
You could suggest it as a classic, but it's not. I don't think you're going to pick it over some other classic films. So I felt like there was never really going to be opportunity unless we're still going in like 30 years and who knows, you got bills to pay, haven't we? And that I would talk about it. And I love this film. It's probably up there in one, like, it's definitely like probably my top 20 films.
Wow.
So in terms of my relationship with this film, I've always watched it since being a kid. My defining memory of this film is that I'm not going to judge. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm of the age where a lot of the films I watched when I was a kid were recorded off the telly, which is against the law. I didn't do that. I bought them very, very legally, but they were recorded off the telly. So I had a copy of this film recorded from the 90s,
right? Yeah,
which I had with all 90s adverts on it, and I mean the classics: Tony the Tiger playing basketball, the Wrigley's one, I'm all right with Free.
Yeah,
all right now, that one. Jeff Goldblum drinking Holston pills. There's so many of them, and so that really actually sort of enriched my relationship with the film, because that helps the nostalgia. And then I was watching it once, and my mum said to me, "Oh, I went into labour whilst I was watching this."
Really?
I was born Boxing Day 1990. So put it in your diary for the cards. It's fine. Voucher should be fine. So must have been either on telly or just come out on video, because I think, was it released in 1988?
Yeah, 88. Yeah, I've got it down. Yeah.
So it probably was one of those things of like back in the day before streaming. You went to see a film, and if you liked it, quite often someone would get it on DVD that Christmas or the following Christmas or whenever it came out. Yeah, so I reckon either it was on telly or they were watching it whilst my mum was. And I think I've mentioned this before on either our own podcast or other podcasts. While she was doing the Christmas dishes, not just any dishes, the monster dishes, the dishes that are so dishes They have to be split between multiple people. Where you go, I'll do soak the pans.
Yeah.
I'll do the plates. You go back for the pans. Yeah. And my mum was 9 months pregnant.
Oh,
Love her.
blimey.
But I did call her on that, and she said, "Oh no, I had like a nesting thing. Like I just had to do it."
Right.
And obviously, either Who Framed Roger Rabbit or Christmas dishes triggered a little old me, and yeah. So that's another just part of my relationship with the film. That always, those little things are what make relationships with films a bit more interesting, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. Just on the topic of when you're saying about the recording from video tapes on the TV and stuff, that was similar. I used to do that as well. The thing I kind of remember from my experience with the film is Gremlins 2. I remember that being recorded off the telly, and I think there was I think it was from tapes that my parents had, because there's like other, like I say, adverts and stuff, and then there's like a snippet of like Apart From Live and Let Die as well as part of that on that tape. And it's like, okay, right, just fast forward that a bit because I don't know what that is, and then I get to the film and everything. But yeah, in between that was all the adverts, or these random things that I don't know if it's so obscure, I probably wouldn't be able to find them anymore, like even on YouTube. But it was just it's triggered a sort of memory from back in the day.
There's so many, isn't there?
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of the Bond ones.
Yeah.
And obviously they would do like Bond season, all the Bonds back to back on ITV, that sort of thing. And there was one where it was film scenes with Quality Street rappers.
Right.
So it would be like a little man made out of scrunched up, Quality Street doing a, James Bond with the lasers going up the table and stuff like that. So I always remember that one. And I always remember, on the Roger Rabbit one, obviously I've already mentioned the Tony the Tiger playing basketball. But do you remember the Nat West one of the guy, and he had to go to the really remote island? And it was like he was going on a boat journey and getting absolutely piss wet through. And it showed him talking to some like rural farmers or something about their new mortgage, and then going back. And as he got back to the mainland, his 90s mobile went off, and he sort of went like that and went, hello. And they went, yeah, we've decided to sign the paperwork. Will you come back? And he turns around and goes, I'll be on my way back then, or something like that. So that was what I remember. Or I remember the Kit Kat one with the two blokes on the mobiles to each other. Next to roadworks, and then when the roadworks go off, you realise they've stood right next to each other. Yeah. Better times, weren't it? Do you know what I mean? Adverts were better.
Yeah, they
really were.
Because you couldn't skip them.
Exactly. And they put effort into it because it was advertising, whereas now it's just like, oh, next, you don't want to see it.
Buy the shampoo. Why? Because you're ugly. Okay.
Precisely, yeah.
We're definitely 90s babies. Well, you're just out, aren't you? 89, but pretty much a 90 baby.
Yeah, so I'm 90.
Yeah, I'm the baby of the group. I'm 1992, so I'll take it. Just clinged on last year to my 20s, and now I'm not.
Paul, you're the year Batman came out. Sophie, you're the year Batman Returns came out.
Which we're yet to cover any of those Batman films. So yeah,
you got to do it. Got to do it for an anniversary because it's your birth years.
Oh no!
But with my first experience watching Roger Rabbit, I'm trying to pinpoint because I've only owned this as like a physical disc as on a DVD copy. I didn't have a VHS of it, so I feel like it was probably either just before sixth form or going into university, I think, before Blu-rays were really big. So that's like I probably obviously around the time when I was going to start my university course, which was to do the animation. So to obviously do a bit of like research on it, really. So
makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So obviously knew about it from bits of obviously like hearsay, like pop culture type of thing, but not really obviously watched the entire film from an early days, like in childhood. So despite obviously being like a popular with the kids when it came out, but
a cartoon, you not watched it?
Yeah, no, yeah. So which is kind of strange, but so I do have a very strong connection with it now because it's like it looks amazing. It still holds up really well for what's all involved in it. But yeah, I'm kind of I don't know why.
So not a nostalgia aspect then. You don't really have that.
No.
Whereas that's really strong for me.
But I do really enjoy the film. It's really great.
I think I was quite young when I watched this, and as a girl and being a bit petrified by things when I was little, I was like that typical scaredy cat girl. Oh my God, this freaked me out. So like the Looney Tunes, the bad one, the red eye, him, I had nightmares.
Oh, that scared me. I remember I was watching it for this the other night, and I said to my partner, that scared the shit out of me when I was about 7.
Yeah.
I can imagine, yeah, being quite...
so scary. And then you watch it now and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's not that bad, is it? But
Yeah.
when you're little, like, I
Very
feel like the
impressionable.
90s, like, they were
Dark
scary
times for-
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what we had to put up with. We had dark, like,
80s,
animations.
90s, yeah. It really was.
No wonder we're so messed up.
We were forged in the fires of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and red eyes turning into swords. No, it is a great film though. It is. So do you both like it then?
Oh yeah. Really do,
Weirdly, this is going to be an easy podcast because I can't disagree. Apart from being absolutely petrified when I was little, like pretty much everything about it is brilliant, and the age of the film and the way that they have to kind of obviously act, and there's nothing actually really it's for such an old film to do that so well is really impressive.
There's actually a lot of effort put into this film, like going into like the special features and like the behind the scenes about it, how they obviously had like the props and stuff, and like obviously things to point as they sort of do now, but the obviously looking back, like they shot the entire film and then like layering like they do on those like cell sheets, drawing over the top, so it's like that Roger Rabbit's here, or the weasels or whatever are going to be in that position, and laying it on top of things so it matched like almost seamlessly into the scene. It's like that's so like such a level of detail to put into a thing, and it works really well, and it looks almost flawless as to like you believe that they are there interacting with those people rather than just
absolutely
somebody like
it still holds up.
Yeah. It's not even like aged. You know, when you look at a film and you think,
no,
oof, like Ghostbusters, for example, you know, with the what are they called?
Those terror dogs and stuff.
Yeah. You can kind of see the little kind of green or white outline of where they've been kind of.
I think this film is helped by the fact it's a period film. So it's set in the 40s, right? So because it's set in the 40s, it won't ever it looks like it's meant to be set in the 40s. Yes. So I think that really, really helped it. But I remember seeing, you know, back when, again, another thing that shows the sort of age we are, one of these shows was Jimmy Carr's 100 Greatest Films or whatever. I remember this probably being in it, or 100 Greatest CGI Effects or something like that. And Bob Hoskins, obviously, is sadly now passed away, but he was being interviewed and he said that, you know, it was really groundbreaking when I did it, but it'd be things like I would do this with my hand, and the director or the head of the production design or whatever would be like, stop grabbing the rabbit like that and grab the rabbit like that. Because every time you grab the rabbit like that, you're costing us 10 grand like to fix it. Or it could be the difference. It could be the difference between £100,000 special effect and a 50 grand special effect. So you need to watch what you're doing. Because every time I watch this, I notice something new. So this time I noticed that when they go into the bar that only humans are allowed in, the octopus that's a bartender is holding real drinks.
Yeah, they're on strings or something. Yeah,
he's got like a martini and a beer and you know all that sort of stuff. And I'd never noticed that before. I just thought it was a bar. I just thought it was like a jolly octopus. So and I think that's often the test of a film like this, isn't it? Does it stand the test of time? To my co-host on the podcast, Alice, her favourite film is Terminator 2.
Right.
And when it was her 100th episode, I picked it and said, I'll let you do Terminator 2. And I pretty much set the recording up and went, go on, talk about Terminator 2 for an hour. And she did. But one of the things we were talking about was like the special effects in that just haven't really aged. And you're watching it now more than 30 years later going, still holds up. And then you look at some of the more recent Marvel things, you're like, how's this shit?
I know exactly.
Like, how is the Doctor Strange weird little eye at the end of Doctor Strange shit? How can it be bad? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
They've got the money Disney have now. These are the multi-billion
and
company.
Technology, you know, it's like not like how hard this was to actually make. And they also had the actual actor that was doing the voiceover for Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, he really embraced
Charles Fleischer,
the voice and everything.
I think he actually thought he was Roger Rabbit. I swear.
Proper method acting, that is. Yeah.
Yeah, he wore a little bow tie or whatever. Because the only other thing I've seen him in is he's in Zodiac.
Right. Yeah.
So if you watch Zodiac, there's a scene where Jake Gyllenhaal, can't even remember because it's been a while since I've seen it. When he goes into he thinks a guy is the Zodiac. And there's a really creepy scene in this guy's basement. But that guy, the creepy guy, is the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Right.
I can see the outline there of where he can go from creepy to being Roger Rabbit. I can see that quite well in the way he does Roger Rabbit, because it's quite endearing when he's Roger Rabbit and you just hear the voice. But when you see him acting at the side...
Oh, yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's cute when Roger Rabbit goes, freeze, and then a grown man says that, and you're like, oh, what's that?
But the voice has got to come from somewhere, so yeah.
The other thing I noticed was right in the very first scene when the director, kicks off and storms off, he grabs his coat, and as he grabs his coat is pulled back as if Roger's actually holding his coat.
It is,
and stuff like that. I'm like, how did they do that?
I know,
they must have had like a grabber or something to make it look like he was grabbing his coat. Yeah. And this is the late 80s we're talking about.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and like even like obviously from the get go, like I just love the fact. I'm a big fan of like the Looney Tunes and stuff. So having like starting off the film with like almost like a Looney Tunes cartoon, I really love that sort of humor that kind of gets him put into those things. Obviously the stretching and everything.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So, but the fact that it kind of cuts to like it's a normal film studio, so it's obviously like all this all the backplot and everything.
He can't make stars come around his head. He can only make birds come around his head. But that's why it's good, isn't it? Is what they do is they sort of build the world in this where they go like, it's such a stupid idea when you actually lay it out, but in it they literally present it to you like, what if this was real?
Yeah.
What if making a cartoon was like making a film, and the cartoons were sort of like another species that shared the earth with humans? I mean, if you like back to you saying there, Paul, with you like in Looney Tunes, if you like cartoons, classic cartoons, this is like Endgame. Because there's like Mickey Mouse, Daffy Duck, Donald Duck, Bugs Bunny, Tweety, Sylvester, Porky Pig, Yosemite Sam, like all of them are in it.
It's kind of interesting. Obviously, like they're being like hired out as if they are actors. Like, I hired out Dumbo from Disney for like on a contract basis.
They work for peanuts. It's great. And then even things like little ideas that they put into the world building, like Betty Boop can't get a job because she's in black and white.
I know, bless her. I love that concept. And then obviously we get the iconic Jessica Rabbit, which actually, to be honest, no woman is ever shaped that way. No. Like, I feel like this is definitely a man that's drawn this woman, 100%.
Drawn that way, yeah.
Obviously, like, even logically, if she was actually a real human,
they even said that
she would fall over.
She would snap in half.
She would not be balanced.
She's like a lot of cartoon women, or a lot of like if you look at how female comic book characters are often drawn by men. No one looks like that. No woman looks like that. I mean, to be fair, a lot of blokes don't look like the blokes in comic books, but it's particularly noticeable with the women, isn't it?
Yeah.
But she's stunning. I can't say she isn't. And like, I understand why any man would find her appealing. Like, I get it. She's like literally
the epitome of like sex appeal, basically.
In a character.
Yeah, she's a proper femme fatale, isn't she? Yeah. Because what I love in it is that she's obviously really sexy, and all the men love her to the point where they're literally drooling over her. Like there's a bit in it that I notice every time that makes me laugh, which is obviously she goes up to Eddie Valiant, Bob Hoskins' character, and she pulls him up by his tie and lets him go, and someone in the background goes, "Oh," like that. It's like, Jesus, this is a PG film. But what I like is they flip reverse it, and they have Roger being really sexy to the female cartoons because he's the best cartoon.
Yeah.
So like,
which is great.
He says she's married to Roger Rabbit, and Betty Boop goes, "Yeah, what a lucky girl."
Yeah.
As in, like, to be married to. So it's like Roger Rabbit because he's the best cartoon, he's the biggest star. It's like he's their Brad Pitt because he's the best cartoon.
Didn't think of it that way.
It's what I love about it. It's like, so there's so much thought gone into. I think if you look at things, for example, one of the criticisms that gets levied at there aren't many other films that mix cartoons and live action successfully, and this is the benchmark, and I think it will always be the benchmark. If you look at other films that do that, what they essentially do is they go, well, it's people and it's cartoons as well, and they go, what's the plot? What? No, that's it. It's just people and cartoons. So like, I remember watching Looney Tunes Back in Action is one, and that's where it's like it's Looney Tunes and they're with real people, but I remember I couldn't tell you what that film's about.
No.
I tell you that Brendan Fraser's in it and Steve Martin's in it, and it's got the Looney Tunes in it.
Yeah, we watched that not too long ago.
I can't remember it.
Exactly.
It's not much of a plot. Space Jam obviously has a bit more of a plot, but even like obviously like Michael Jordan, that is a bit like he's not looking at Bugs Bunny. He's not really interacting.
And that is literally what if we put the biggest athlete in the world with the biggest cartoon in the world.
Yeah.
But then you only got to look at. I haven't watched it yet, but I believe one of the criticisms of the second Space Jam was there's just nothing to it.
No, that was so pointless.
It's just all cartoons, and look at all these cartoons. Yeah, what about them? Yeah, look at them.
Yeah,
look at our Warner Brothers properties. Yeah, pretty much.
Wasn't it? It was like a stadium full of all of the Warner Brothers, like whatever
everyone you think they think you want to see.
Yeah,
but with no plot.
Yeah, there was no reason behind it.
Which is what, if you watch the Jason Segel Muppets film, one of the things they do so well in that is bringing them all back together, and you really want to see them all together.
Yeah.
And you see them being like down on their luck, and what they've all gone on to do. Whereas, I think this is why this film is so good, is because it's so rich in its world building.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to soak in on that, and I do think there was probably like some like contractual obligation that I think like Daffy Duck and Donald Duck had to share the same screen time, and the same with Mickey and Bugs Bunny as well when they're doing the parachute bit later on in the film, which I really like that bit because it's like Mickey Mouse like, oh, you could get killed.
Yeah.
But it's like it's that really silly humor, isn't it? Like, here's the spare, and it's a spare tire.
Yeah.
But I like that, when you go into Toontown, you sort of have all the same rules as Toontown. So you can fall from a great height and you're okay because the cartoon's okay. Because again, another thing with so do you know Dip? The Dip, when he talks about the dip, when he says the ingredients?
Yeah.
Acetone. Do you know what they are?
Acetone is like to remove stuff from, I think, like cell sheets.
So if you combine all those ingredients, I believe you get paint stripper.
Really?
Right,
so what you're dipping them, so essentially what you're doing is rubbing them out.
Yeah.
So when he says there's no way you can kill a cartoon except you put them in this mix of chemicals, and that mix of chemicals makes paint stripper.
Right. Yeah.
So you're essentially dissolving them because they're drawn characters.
Yeah.
I think that's what's like amazing about this film, how thought out it is and how clever your audience they target, like Patty Cake. I love the fact of that.
It's like sex for cartoons.
Yeah, and it's so cleverly done because it will go over a child's head, but an adult will know exactly what they're meaning. And it just adds that element of humour for an adult perspective as well. And probably when you're little, you won't even know what that is.
No.
And then you watch it and you're like, oh, Patty Cake was something completely different.
But it's stuff like that. Or he says, Eddie says to me, what do you see? And that guy just goes, he makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. So it's so layered and it's so rich in its subtext that I think that's what it makes a cut above other films. And I do think it's a great family film as well. Like everyone can watch it. Like you said there, you could watch this as an adult and laugh at stuff that kids won't get, but kids will laugh at the practical jokes and the sort of physical comedy, if you like, and that sort of thing. The idea that the weasels can laugh themselves to death. Stuff like that. But I mean, Robert Zemeckis, who's obviously the director, has always been at the forefront of technology. He's always been like, so he did this. He was the guy who made the Polar Express. And then for a while, he made pretty much strictly CGI films. So he made Beowulf.
He did, yeah.
The Jim Carrey Christmas Carol one. And he's gone back recently to more live action films. But he's always been... There's always a thing in his films. There's always like, oh, this is the one where... So he made like Castaway. And the whole thing with Castaway was that Tom Hanks and him made it over a long period so that Tom Hanks could put weight on, then lose weight again because he was going to be, chubby middle-aged man turns into a man trapped on an island and stuff like that, and then obviously made the Back to the Future films as well, which speak for themselves and all that sort of stuff. So I think he's a great director. Some of his more recent stuff I know, as I haven't watched things like he made the Roald Dahl, The Witches, and I haven't seen it yet, but I know it wasn't particularly well reviewed. But then he also made a film with I want to say Steve Carell. I think it's called something like Welcome to Marwen.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I've seen the poster. Yeah.
I've watched it, and I remember it being pretty good. And that's one where I think it's him. Steve Carell can't tell the difference between reality and his toys. So all his toys are like characters in it, but then they're all animated as well. So, so he's always quite he always seems to be at the forefront of like, what can I do to push the envelope in that sort of thing.
But in terms of like what he does as well, like he works with Steven Spielberg as well on this. I think that was the same with like Back to the Future and stuff like that. So it's almost like they were kind of working off each other. I think they know what works. Obviously, for an audience, like Steven Spielberg is still going with films and stuff, and he's he's still fairly successful. Not everything is a hit with him, to be fair, in what he does recent, but they're always, again, like pioneers of the cinema. They just have such a passion for it, and I say a lot of passion went into making this film, and it really shows to this day and everything. It's
absolutely, because the other thing as well is this: it is based on a book, but I've never read the book, and I believe for years they've been trying to make a sequel. But obviously now Bob Hoskins can't be in it, can he?
Yeah, the closest they got. Did you see that? Was it Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers film? Did you?
I've seen it advertised. I've never seen it.
Yeah, because that's the sort of like a sort of similar vibe of what it was going for, with a detective type of thing in a slim way. But it's a recommendation, I'd say, but it's nowhere near what Roger Rabbit's trying to do.
So if I was going to make a sequel, I think the time has probably passed now.
Yeah.
If I was going to make one, I think if you made one about 10 years ago, you could do a sort of new animation versus old animation type storyline about like all the old tunes are dying out because the Pixar tunes are the more popular ones and that sort of stuff.
It sort of does. There's a little bit of that in the Chip and Dale one, because like obviously they were 2D cartoons, and then is it Dale or whoever, which one with the red nose? Yeah, is like goes through as a 3D CGI makeover basically, and then it's like, I'm getting into the real world. So it is kind of sort of like that, and you kind of get that mix of it.
I find that a bit hard though. I think Space Jam did that a little bit as well.
Well, where they initially were 2D, and then we got a 3D upgrade, and they look worse off for it.
They do, and I think that's the only issue. Whereas I would rather them stay the same design, but then, like Josh is saying, incorporate people who have been created newly, and then you can see like kind of the progress between the animations and such. But don't ruin something that is brilliant.
I'm a big advocate of 2D over 3D in my animation preference. That's always has been. I think it always looks better. You can do a lot more weirdly with 2D. I feel like there's more emotion put to it. 3D can sometimes be a bit soulless, if I'm being honest. Obviously,
no, I think that sort of speaks for itself. In so you're quite an animation fan, are you?
Yeah. I say I do it for my job and from uni and stuff. So so I've always gone down that road. Even at uni when I was studying, it was like I prefer 2D. That's the path I want to go down. So it can be easy sometimes, but sometimes 3D does have that extra benefit of stuff. But it's what you put into it, really.
I think it depends how you do it as well.
Yeah.
I think a bad animation, sticks out like a sore thumb, or poor use of things. So, for example, I'm yet to see a Disney remake that I've enjoyed.
Right. Yeah.
Like they keep doing it.
Yeah.
I tried to watch The Lion King.
Oh, don't get Paul started.
Don't get me started.
But they can't. Lions can't talk.
Yeah.
So why? So when you see a lion talk, it looks weird.
It looks stupid.
But when you do it as a cartoon, it doesn't look weird.
No.
So what? So I don't want to see a talking lion. I've seen some. I don't know if it's true, but some leaked art of what Sebastian's going to look like.
We've seen it. We went to the cinema the other evening, and we saw a trailer for it.
The stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell?
What about this lobster? Oh yeah, what if it can talk? What? Like, if that comes into my room, I'm volleying it across the room.
Yeah.
But I suppose they all make £1 billion and kids love them. So
yeah, and I think obviously it is a nostalgia thing for us as well because we've grown up with the originals. We know what the best versions are, and then seeing something that's been recreated, adapted to this format,
like Moana being remade like 7 years later now into live action. Is like, what's the point? It's not even that long ago. Like not even 10 years yet, and it's still like, we need to churn this out into something. Make a sequel of Moana 2 in the 3D, fine, but don't need to make the exact same film live action so soon. It's
because they've run out of ideas. That's what it is. They can't seem to bring anything new to the table, so they have to go back and recreate something and ruin it.
Yeah.
I think and also COVID I think really didn't help because everything now, the last couple of Pixars I definitely watched at home.
Yeah,
like Soul and Onward, the one with Tom Holland and Chris, which both I thought were pretty good. But I wonder if it's just something lost a little bit because there is something lost when you can check your phone and go make a brew or get another biscuit or whatever it is you're doing when you're watching films. I think that's why it probably is important to keep going to the cinema.
No, 100%. We love going to the cinema, don't you? Because it is where you dedicate that time to watch it. You're not going, well, some people might be on the phone, so I wouldn't recommend it unless you've got that annoying person that's got the light on the screen and you're like, can you turn your phone off?
No, they get told if I've sit by them. Depends how big they are, actually.
Yeah. But you should go and kind of switch off and watch a film, and that's what films are about. And I think
immersing yourself in it.
When you're at home,
it's hard to break that mold because your phone's just there.
If it pings or whatever, you're at it, aren't you?
So and the whole thing with the cinema or the theatre or anything is that you're focused entirely on what's in front of you, and your periphery is not. You're not thinking like periphery.
Yeah.
Whereas the more distractions you have, the less likely you are to concentrate and focus. So there are films that you will enjoy seeing at the cinema. We watched the most recent Top Gun at home, and I remember saying, I wish I'd seen this in the cinema because I really enjoyed it. But imagine seeing it in the cinema when it's meant to be seen, and it's such a massive scale of a film that it's meant to be seen in the cinema. Whatever reason, we never got around to seeing it at the cinema. We watched it on streaming or whatever.
Yeah, we were the same. But I think also with the cinema experience, it's everybody else watching it with you. And if there's an emotional scene or if somebody's laughing, it's that kind of audience involvement within a cinema as well that you miss out of being at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it feels more epic as well. Like I always think of like back to when we saw Endgame.
I knew you were going to say that.
And just the emotion, the music, obviously the musical around you, and it'll just like culminate into that. Obviously, that the portals moment.
When he spoilers if you've not seen it, everyone's seen it by now because it made £2 billion. But when Captain America catches the hammer, I grabbed the hand of the guy next to me because I thought it was my partner, and I was so excited that I got my left and my right next up, and I went like that, and it was so good that the guy sort of was like, give me like a I know. Like it wasn't even like it was like. But there's not like there is that shared experience in the cinema of people laughing together, or if it's scary and someone if someone's got is particularly jumpy, then there's there's that thing of someone goes whoo like that, and then everyone around goes whoo, and then goes like that's why shared experience is important. I remember someone I used to know. That's why we live in Liverpool, and obviously famously as the spoilers as the Titanic sinks.
Does it? Oh my god!
Liverpool on the back. Yeah. So it's sorry, and then it gets to New York fine, and they go and have but it sinks, and obviously it was registered to the White Star Line in Liverpool, so it says Liverpool on the back. And my lecturer at uni said, "Oh, everyone cheered."
What?
But we watched it in uni, and everyone was upset, and then that happened, and sort of a load of people went, "Wait."
Such a Liverpudlian culture, like, oh, it's got Liverpool on it.
Actually, Liverpool there. But that's shared experience, isn't it? If you ever have watched a film that is made where you're from, or you recognise something in, you're like, oh, that's the street that we, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you do. And I don't think for me with Roger Rabbit, I actually ever, I don't know, I would have been too little probably with the cinema.
Yeah,
I would have been about, when was it?
88 it came out.
I wasn't born.
I think we're all too young for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think this would probably still hold up if like modern audiences like young kids and going to see it now. You think that would they would flock to see it, or the parents would be like, "Come on, let's go see Roger Rabbit at the cinema." Do you think it would do well? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think that I don't see a way how it's made in such a way. I don't see it how it can age because it's made in the 40s. Because it's made to look like the 40s. The 40s will always have looked like that. So it's not like it's because it is a period film. It's almost like a moment. It's captured as if this is a little moment in time. So because of that mix of real world and fantasy, and the fact that it's got characters in it who will always have looked like that. So Bugs Bunny, sometimes they'll make him 3D or whatever, but that is what people will always know Bugs Bunny is looking like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's I think why it works. I think
you
could show this to a kid now. You could show this to an 8-year-old now, and that 8-year-old could show their kids in 30 years time or whatever, and they would like it as well. I think it's as close to timeless as you can get. I think
very much. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and I was like the message of like how laughter is the best medicine, really, with everything.
Laughter's the best medicine,
but it can kill you as well.
If you're a weak.
Yeah. But one of the favorite bits is like when another comedic part of the film where they've got the handcuffs on him, and
Oh,
and he's like, "Oh, can you hold this?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure." And it's like, "Oh, you could just slip out of that anytime you want." It's like, "No, only when it was funny." It's like,
Only when
yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah.
But there's that bit, and there's that. So that's another thing they do to enrich the sort of world building is they take the rules of cartoons and they apply them to
Real
real
life,
world.
yeah.
So there's a bit where he's trying to get him to have the whiskey,
Yeah.
Yes.
and he's like, "I don't want the drink. You do.
I don't.
You don't. You don't. I do." And but that's what happens in. That's what happens in Looney Tunes, isn't it? Is to get someone to do someone, you flip reverse it,
yeah.
and that sort of thing, and they use it, and because everyone who's watching it has watched cartoons when they're a kid, you go, oh yes, yeah, that's what happens in cartoons.
And the same effect when I would have a drink, that my head would probably go like Bugs Bunny's.
Roger Rabbit,
Yeah.
And then he bursts through the window and it leaves the
I think
perfect
that's what
outline.
it is. So I feel like that is literally showing like a Looney Tune being childlike, and that's when you have a drink of alcohol when you're little and your parents let you have a sip. You're like, it's the most disgusting thing in the world. You're like, your taste buds, I don't think they ever refine to really enjoying alcohol. I don't. And it's one of those things where when you're little, your head would explode off. And I think that's really clever with the way that they symbolize things without you actually realizing that they've actually thought every single little bit through.
Mm-hmm.
Like the booby trap in
the end.
the literal,
nice booby trap.
Brilliant. It's like
go with wordplay of it.
It's fantastic.
It's great. Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, with obviously alcohol. Obviously, Eddie's a bit of a alcoholic. You kind of get his like from the get go with his demeanor from his sort of tunes, having a drink and everything, and that's very much impacting his like detective career and such.
He's got a strong story though behind him.
Oh no, he does. Yeah, it's that's really
deep.
like touching. I actually nearly like welled up when he's looking at his brothers like and the photos he got on his.
He has the little lip wobble, and I think that's
he does.
he sort of goes,
oh my god,
like that, and it's like such a good piece of acting because the other thing they do, again, is they make you take it seriously. So.
Yeah.
His brother died because a cartoon dropped a piano on his head.
Yeah,
which is silly.
It is.
Yeah, to think.
But when the way that Joanna Cassidy portrays that line, it's like, oh my god, he dropped a piano on his head.
Yeah.
Like that's awful.
Yeah.
And he says something in it like, broke my arm, Teddy never made it.
Yeah.
Like that. And there's that bit where you're like, oh my god, he's so torn up about his brother. His brother was murdered by a cartoon, and you are fully taking it seriously.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you kind of understand why he resents them a little bit, like, and he doesn't want to help them. And they are, I guess, if you lived with them, I could imagine they would get irritating after a while. Like, it's lovable when you watch it on telly, but if you actually have to put up with a tune 24/7, like going off the rockers every 2 minutes, you probably would want to hit him with a pan.
Basically, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's sort of almost like an analogy for segregation, isn't it? Because they live in their own little town.
Yeah.
They have their own bit. They've obviously, at some point, I'd love to know the history of the world where they've gone, fucking hell, put them in this little walled up bit of LA and leave them there. Because they're going to ruin the town. But then there are tunes in this who have got jobs. So, like, there's just a big monkey that works in that bar and an octopus who we've already mentioned is a bartender. So, does that mean at some point they were drawn by someone to be in a cartoon and they were only in it once? So now they're alive, they have to go and get a job?
Yeah, do they have, like, apartments and stuff? They've got to pay the bills and stuff,
The amount of things you've drawn now and the jobless and homeless.
Yeah, you
Imagine,
murderer.
Yeah. Creating things and then not giving it a purpose.
For example, in it, one of the things I've always thought is that Jessica and Roger have a house because he says something like, I went home to wait for her and she wasn't there.
Yeah.
So what does that house look like? And where is it? Do they live in the real world? Like, obviously he's a big star. So does he live in like Beverly Hills? Or do they live in a nice bit of Toontown? Like, does he have a really fit apartment in Toontown that they live in?
I want to think it's Toontown because he's such a toony character and he's more loved in Toontown.
Yeah.
That it would have to be there. Like, that feels right. But then Jessica, I feel like, would be more in the human world, I feel. Because she is,
yeah,
she's not...
Pure humanoid, in that sense.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really clever about her. She's obviously a toon, but the way she's designed is, she's humanized, isn't she? Basically, she's a woman.
Yeah.
She's Jessica Rabbit, but it's not, it's not really much rabbit.
No, it's just because of the surname. She's married to him, so she's taking this.
Roger Rabbit.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So what was she drawn for, and what was her maiden name?
Yeah.
Like, she obviously married him at some point and became Jessica Rabbit. So, like, what was she drawn for?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very sus.
Because they also it raises all sorts of questions, doesn't it? Of like, well, like, could you just draw yourself a partner?
Yeah, theoretically,
imagine.
yeah. But or how are they birthed, and like also like how Muppets are like and humans are involved. Like how where does that come from? How are they birthed? Type thing. Like where do they come from and that kind of stuff. It's like so if. I think there's a film called Cool World as well. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
Yeah, I think that's a bit more of like a darker, very darker tone on the whole, like humans and cartoon characters interacting in a certain way. But it's kind of interesting to think like how that would sort of like come about with like obviously how like Baby Herman, for example, was he just drawn as a baby or did he come from somebody else and he's just stunted growth? Oh, what?
Well, that's because he sort of he has a girlfriend in it, and he says to Eddie, "I've got a 50-year-old lust in a 3-year-old dinky." So was he drawn as a baby? Was a baby and has aged naturally but never grown? So he has aged. He's now 50 years old, but because he's a cartoon, he stays as a baby. Like it's so you could sit and ask so many questions about this film.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It probably is the case because he smokes a cigar and everything, bless him, and he's doing the bookies, and he's literally a middle-aged man, isn't he? When you look at him, but
the way he acts, yeah. But you said because I think it's because he obviously got when in the cartoon he's got those big eyelashes. It's almost like he looks like more like a baby girl rather than a baby boy.
Yeah. He does, and then he kind of starts talking, and you're like, "Oh, okay, then that's what's coming out of you." But I think that's what makes everything so brilliant about this film, and the way that they actually merge everything in. You've got so many different styles of animation, the way that they've got, the actors dealing with the puppets as well, and then the idea of comedy, humor, kind of pulls on your heartstrings. It gives you this whole roller coaster of emotions, and even at the end you're rooting for Toontown to not lose their home.
Yeah, because we all like the tunes. So we like what they do. They make us laugh. They make us cry. Whatever, they give us emotions.
Yeah. And I think I can't compare this to any other film, so it's hard to actually look at it and compare, because I don't think anything can do as good as this, nor have I seen anything as of yet do what this film does.
Exactly.
That tackles it this well. Yeah.
And other films have tried, but like I said, it's all cartoons are real people, and that's it. There's so much thought behind why does this exist and what's happening and why should I care.
Yeah.
That the special effects should not come before the story. The story needs to be solid, and then you put the special effects in.
Yeah.
If it's just special effects, then you end up with, weren't the effects good? Yeah, but that's about it. Loads of people like Avatar, that's absolutely fine. And I remember watching it and thinking, this film looks amazing, and then going away from it being like, but I couldn't tell you much else about it. It looks incredible. I was really glad I saw it in the cinema, and it's definitely an experience, and I can see why it made loads of money, and I can see why people liked it. But I was just like, from a narrative point of view, there just isn't enough here for me. And I think that's because it's made as a visual experience.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, yeah.
Recently, I think I only watched it last year.
It was re-released before Avatar 2 came out. We haven't seen Avatar
100 million out of it.
Yeah, and we were the suckers.
yeah. So it's like I said to Sophie, like, if the first Avatar came back in cinemas in 3D, I'd take you to see it. And we so happened by chance we were at a place where that was out, so it's like, we're going to go see it, because it's like the best example of like 3D cinema I've seen. Although I think I kind of maybe remembered it a little bit differently, if that makes sense, from when I first saw it in the cinema. I think I was like, wow, this is actually spectacular. It's almost like you can touch the things. At this time, it was a bit like, maybe that was literally nostalgia goggles, maybe a little bit. I don't know.
It was made for 3D, and then afterwards, loads of films went, what about just like, if we make it 3D and add £3 to the ticket price?
Yeah. Got suckered in with some of those films like that. Was it Clash of the Titans or something that was 3D?
I remember going. I think we went to watch Green Hornet 3D IMAX, and I was like, it was about 15 quid for a ticket, which obviously in 2011 was loads more than it is now. And I was like, why? Absolutely nothing. So I can see Seth Rogen standing in front of me in 3D. I know what Seth Rogen looks like.
I wonder what kind of glasses you got. Were they the ones that were like the green? Was it the green and blue, or was it red and blue glasses? Do you remember the old 3D glasses?
3D glasses.
Like
no,
the
I think they're more
ones?
those clear ones now.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I watched Avatar, it was the clear.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the standard now. Not so much the little paper ones that you stuck up.
The little cardboard ones from the cover of Smash It.
Yeah.
With some plastic scissors that can't cut anything. Mom, I got some scissors, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, they're fine.
They weren't even comfortable, were they?
No, they really weren't.
I got some lip gloss. Where is it? In the carpet. Oh, fucking hell, is it?
But yeah, Josh, what you were saying about before, about obviously with the story before the visuals, I think that is what they did with this film. They actually, like I say, they got a lot of the film recorded, and it's like, right, we want to incorporate animation to us, but how do we do it? And they went to the animators, like, well, we'll kind of figure it out, kind of essentially, and by God, they did. And yeah,
absolutely did. I think that's it, isn't it? It's the visuals are amazing, but the story and the journey of the characters and other little things as well, like the music's amazing. Like there's loads of attention to detail to how the cartoon works, but there's also loads of attention to detail to making it look like 1940s LA.
Yeah, the score and stuff. Yeah, because I do kind of like that era, like obviously playing the game like LA Noire and stuff.
And you were going to say that. I was thinking that it is like a little detective game.
There's something
it?
about that seems wholesome and in a certain way, or just really, something about I really enjoy that kind of aspect, like the Hollywood scene, I suppose, really. But it's not all glam anyway, as this film shows us. Yeah.
It's golden age of cartoons meets golden age of Hollywood, and that's what I think it makes it work as even more so.
And to be fair, being really controversial, and I don't, when I say this, it doesn't mean I want it, but what you could do with this film is you could actually just scrap the loons out of it, and it still could be a film. You wouldn't have as much of a plot. You would change the loons to be a different kind of, I don't know, like a gang or a cult or something like that. You know, you could change it to a perspective where it is actually just human on human, and it would still be a story and it would still work. Whereas Space Jam, if you took the tunes out of it, it wouldn't really be a
basketball, isn't it?
It's just basketball. It'd be very boring.
Yeah.
If you replace the cartoons in this with movie stars, so if Roger Rabbit was a movie star like Humphrey Bogart or whatever, it'd still work as a film, with maybe the exception of melting them with tape.
True. Yeah.
You have to figure out something else.
But if you just made that, a gun, then it would work, wouldn't it?
But as I say, there's just so much more to add to that, the kind of like level of humor and stuff that it has to offer. It's a different take on that, because I think, like, from earlier films, not to say like, oh, they're all the kind of same, all these kind of like noir crime thrillers and stuff of the like the 40s, 50s, whatever, but having this different spin on it, basically, of like making it appeal to a wider audience and get adults and kids getting enjoyment out of it is really spectacular, that they've managed to capture really and keep it fresh, essentially. And all this, as I've said before, all these years now, it still holds up really well.
I feel like that's what a 90s film does, and I know I'm a 90s baby, so I'm cliche and I'm nostalgic about it, but I do think the humour in a 90s film and the darkness, which is scary, but I feel like it does teach you more valuable lessons within the films, like Sleeping Beauty or anything like that, or Don't Eat a Poison Apple off a Stranger. It gives you these kind of silly little lessons that you learn as a young age. I don't really know what the Looney Tunes is, apart from
which Space Jam.
Yeah. But with this, I feel like it does kind of teach you valuable lessons within it, and cleverly gives an adult an enjoyment too. And I don't know if films do that as much these days. Like, can't even compare it, like, to think, oh, that made me laugh on an adult level at the same time, and it not just be there. I think the only one I can think of at the moment that I really enjoyed was like Kung Fu Panda, but that's just because it's Jack Black, so it's like that level of humor is there, and that's because it's solid. But I think with this, it's just a classic, isn't it? And it's always going to be.
I think if you're going to have a hit, if something like this has to feel sort of timeless, like it does, it's got to be. There's nothing wrong with it having broad appeal. So I think the fact there are jokes in there for the kids and jokes in there for the adults. It's something we always talk about on our pod, which is when I've picked a few little animations that I've said, like, this is good because of this. So like a little while ago, I picked The Road to El Dorado, which I think some people would argue is in places too adult for young kids in particular. But what they do is you've got to have those jokes where you're basically going to the parents and going, this is for you. You know what the joke is here, but you can't say, but you know. And then also the kids be like, look, you got hit by the frying pan, ha 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 ha, that sort of thing. Whereas I think now, ultimately now, there's just so much content on so many platforms that it's quite often hard to sift through everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I do think there's definitely something to be said for that lack of broad appeal sometimes. So they are still being made, but I do think you're right. I think the middle ground is sort of dissolving a little bit, but that also might be because it's being lost in all the content.
Yeah.
100% agree. Yeah. It's a tricky fine line, and I think the 90s will always do it best for me.
Please, yeah.
Just have to educate all the children now to watch 90s stuff. And I know it sounds really weird because it's 30 odd years, isn't it? And a bit. So it's not that long ago, but actually to think of how technology has progressed and what they did with this film is just mind boggling.
It's not, I just don't think it's aged.
No. And you would think it would, or it should, because if they recreated this now, if they went down that path of how to do it, I probably can imagine it wouldn't look as good, would it?
No, I wouldn't watch it. If they remade it, I just think there are some things you don't need to touch, and this is one of them. Back to the Future is one of them.
Yeah.
There's nothing in that we think this would be improved if we it's fine. Leave it as it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's my issue. Like I said before, with some of the Disney remakes, is maybe I'm being cynical, but they're there to make money.
Yeah.
You don't need to remake The Lion King exactly the same.
No, really don't.
It's great as it is. Yeah. I'll go back and watch it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Same with Aladdin. I don't want to see Aladdin with a Will Smith genie and not a Robin Williams genie. It's just different.
Yeah.
And but then the flip side of it is kids in 20 years will say how much they liked it.
100%. And it's because it's more modernized, isn't it? And it's more kind of driven towards that era. Like, I think the new Aladdin will age more than the old Aladdin will, because they tried too much to make it relevant for that era. And then when somebody else watches it now, it'll be like, ugh, why is it like 2000s or whatever?
Yeah.
And and it'll look dated by what they put in.
Standards of that. And then they'll remake it again in another 30 years.
Yeah, it probably will.
Think like, oh, well, this...
like King Kong, it just gets remade every 10 years.
I didn't bear thinking about sometimes with these films. Yeah. Is there any other points you want to bring up, Josh?
No, that's pretty much it, mate. I just love this film. I think it's great. Yeah. I think everything I've said, I think it's timeless. I think it looks amazing. If you've not seen it, give it a watch, man. It's great.
Well, I've got a sneaking suspicion I know what your score might be.
Out of 10?
Yeah, what score it is out of 10, yeah.
Yeah, can I do like halves?
Yeah, you can,
yeah.
Like, let's say 9.5. Because I'm one of those pedantic bastards who's like, nothing is 10 out of 10. I'm everyone's English teacher.
All right.
So I'm going to challenge that and go, what would make it a 0.5?
What would make it 0.5 better? 0.5. If I got to see Roger and Jessica's house.
That's a good answer. I didn't expect you to be so on the ball.
If there was a bit when they went, and they live in a big cartoon carrot or something like that.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Or like Minnie and Mickey's house, you know how cute it is. Yeah. I'd like that. You know me, for my completeness of films and how I like to know every little bit of detail, I'm on board.
I honestly think I'm going to go 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Really, I knew you were going to do it. I knew it. I felt it.
Yeah. Despite, obviously, I haven't seen it since I was a little kid or anything like that, but there's that sort of like more appreciation from it of a sort of adult-ish mind in 18 plus onwards, going back through the film, rediscovering it, re-watching it, and just, I say, like picking up bits that I didn't see the first time, or just again, like looking at that level of appreciation for what the craft is and what went into it. And it's just there's just so much enjoyment to get out of it. There's so many funny moments I really like. It's sort of like on my humor level and everything like that. So it's just really great. Good piece of animation, and live action
Absolutely.
combined. So, yeah.
Wow, that's the fastest I've heard you speak. You're like on ×2 speed there.
Right, Roger Rabbit speed.
Yeah. Oh no, I feel under pressure now. I had a score in mind when I came into this, and I feel like I should just stay true to myself.
Yep.
Oh, listen, that's what you've got to be true to yourself.
You look
It's what
anxious
Roger would
now.
It's what Roger would want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is high, I won't lie. And I do think it is, I'm a nostalgia baby. Like anything that's the 90s, I'm going to love it.
Mm-hmm.
We've said, I won't repeat everything, we've just kind of confirmed why the hell we love the film and why my score is what it is, because they can just listen. But I think I'm going to agree with you, Paul. It's going to be a 10.
Wow! Oh, I'll change mine then.
But then when Josh said about the carrot house, I was a little bit like, oh,
I want to see the big carrot
I was
house.
like, oh, okay, now that's like literally a carrot dangled in front of me of something else that I would possibly want. So that was when it was swaying me to a 9.5. I was like, which one do I go? And then I did think, oh, well, should I do 9.5 because it used to petrify me when I was little? But that doesn't affect me anymore. So
No.
we're okay. We're past it now.
Yeah.
But I would definitely, if we had a child, I would sit them down, plonk them in front of the TV, and forewarn them about the red eye thing, being like, it's okay. That he dies, it's fine.
Yeah, he gets rolled over.
Yeah. And then they'd gladly enjoy it, I think. Unless they get your weird gory vibe, and they'll absolutely love it because nothing scares you.
It's not quite.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I'm glad it's getting pretty much full marks. Apart from the carrot house.
Paul, I expect now you to draw me and Josh this carrot house where Bugs
but your expectations might be completely different from what you've got in your head, and I'm like, that's like, you look at it like, that's not what I imagined.
Well, I'll tell you.
in my head, it's pretty much just the you know in cars when they live in a big cone.
Yeah.
It's just that. But it's a carrot.
I need a bit of foliage at the top.
Not like SpongeBob, where he lives in a pineapple. It's just like a literal,
Yeah.
just a carrot, and it's just the door on the front.
Do not do that.
How many beds? 3 beds. It's probably a 3 bed, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want an inside and an out.
24 carrot.
Oh,
house.
Hey.
Mansion. Yeah.
I'm sure you could do something. You know, like a little bit of. You know, have you ever been to Disneyland and you go into like Minnie's house?
I haven't been to Disneyland, so I can't.
I'm sorry to rub it in that I have. You could go in Minnie's house.
I have. Yeah.
And if you Google it, you can see her like house and everything. I want an inside and an outside of the house and a white picket fence.
I'll see what I can do.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much, Josh, for joining us on this episode.
You're welcome, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Really enjoyed it. Time has just flown by.
Yeah, a lot of fun talking about this, revisiting this. So just a quick reminder for those listeners where they can find you on the socials and all that.
So we're on all social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and all that. If you just search for Just Films and that, you'll find us. And we're out every Tuesday, whenever you get your podcasts.
Awesome sauce, right?
That threw me off, that did.
So, thank you once again, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Joyce. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode, and a big thank you to our special guest. If you want to check out some of our other episodes, you can do so by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. And we'd really appreciate you leave us a 5-star review on any of those platforms as well. A big thank you to the Patrons for supporting the show, who are Mark from 100 Things You Learned from Film, Ben from Film Vloggers, our friend Jones, who is at WeightLossJonesy on Instagram, Sophie's mum, and Nico from The Good, The Bad and The Weird podcast. And if you would like a shout out on each of our episodes and the opportunity to vote on what we watch once a month, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/SP Film Viewers to sign up for as little as £1 or $1.50 a month, and gets you those little perks and helps grow our little community. And lastly, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter and TikTok under the handle SP_filmviewers. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you next time.